That can't be good.
All right, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen March 21st, 2024 meeting. Preliminary matter. The Board of Selectmen meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with the governor's Healy's authorization from last March 2023 regarding open meeting law. Individuals wishing to participate may do so utilizing the Zoom conference technology. Please note the meeting is being recorded and shared via Facebook and on Dover-Sherburne Cable TV. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you. Take note not to share your screen. Anything that you do or say will be broadcast. I feel like these are the Miranda rights, Chief. I don't know if there's a correlation. As a preliminary matter, I'm going to confirm we have a quorum. I am John Jeffries, Chairman of the Board. Robin Hunter,
present.
Dave Haviland,
present.
In addition to Chief Joseph Vinci, we are also joined by Mike Blanchard, and Mona is here somewhere. Chris Costello is here, and Kate. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. We are going to begin the meeting with citizens' comments. Before we open for citizens' comments, though, Chris, I want to publicly congratulate the Dover-Sherburne Weston, how about that for a combination, boys hockey team. And they won their first ever Division IV state championship on Sunday at TD Garden. So yeah, congratulations to the DS boys hockey, which is really cool for such a small program to be able to combine towns. And I know that we've done it in other sports. It's really cool. So congratulations to the boys. And
well said,
Mike, Chris, citizens comments, citizens speak. Anybody in the chat?
Don't see anyone in the chat, and we didn't receive anything ahead of time.
Anybody want to make any announcements before we move on to the first item? All right, let's move on. The first item of business this evening is a report from the Carroll Community Center. So before we do that, and Michael, before you introduced Al, I just want to quickly remind everyone what Al does for us. Excuse me. So, as you may recall, in this project, the town of Dover is required to have an owner's project manager. Al, who represents Colliers, is our town of Dover owner's project manager. And the reason the town is required to have Al and Colliers is to make sure that they are, on behalf of the town, reviewing, inspecting, examining, discussing all the many twists and turns that take place during the construction process. The process engineering and the process of building a building is a complicated matter. It's a lot more than math, days on the job and division. We hire a owner's project manager to always be looking out for the town of Dover's best interests. They have one main goal as our owner's project manager, and that is to do what is in the best interest for the town of Dover. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that because it's been quite a while and we've been going deep into the weeds of the project and the building, but it's very important for everybody who's watching this and tunes in or watches remotely after the fact to understand the context of what Colliers is doing for us. Robin, Dave, would you like to add anything to that?
I'm set, thank you.
Robin?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, Michael, can you introduce Al?
Yeah, so I feel like you just did, but Al did a better job than I could do. So Al's here from Colliers. I know Dick Malcolm, the chair of the building committee, is on the line. But just in summary, before I turn it over, on March 11th, the Community Center Building Committee met and voted to recommend 4 change orders, which are before you tonight. And I'll turn it over to Al to go through each of those and answer any questions that the board might have.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, John. That was very well said. That's essentially my job. And in summary, it's just to watch out for the best interests of the town, working with the building committee, the architect, and the construction team. Do you want me to go over each one of these individually, or how do you want to do this?
If you could just give us a summary, Al, that would be great. One of the things that Robin began when she stepped in for Bob as chair, and I just want to continue, is to make sure that we're completely transparent. Bob, as the representative from the board, had a unique perspective. I've had a unique perspective since I've stepped into that role in his absence. And I just want to make sure, and Robin, Dave, and I want to make sure that everybody gets the full transparency of what the change orders are. You can go into as little or as much detail as you feel necessary. I just want to make sure we're completely transparent. And Robin, do you feel like that's consistent with what we started?
Yep, and Al, not everybody has the information in front of them, so it would be good just to, put the dollar amount and then the total cost. And I love that you put what was remaining of the contingency, so when you're done, if you can just summarize that as well, it would be great.
Of course, sounds good. Thank you. So like Michael said, we have a total of 4 change orders that we're looking at. These are change orders because these were items that were not included in the bid documents. They're essentially a change in the contract. The total for the 4 change orders is $65,597.95. The first, we're calling it a pending change order, is subject to being approved. The first one is pending change order. I'm going to refer to them as PCOs. PCO number 7. It's essentially to add 2 isolation valves to each of the 30,000 gallon underground water storage tanks for the fire protection system. These isolation valves were not required by code, and therefore they were not designed into the project. However, during the process of reviewing the submittals and getting the shop drawings from the subcontractors, they suggested that we consider adding these because of their experience with other projects where they specifically had one example where one of the tanks essentially after being installed, cracked, leaked, and essentially there was no way to isolate one tank from the other tank. What that meant is that the building was unprotected. The entire building had to be shut down until the leak was fixed. And my understanding is that was about a week process. And in addition to that, because the tanks could not be isolated, they had to empty both tanks. And that was, I forgot how many gallons, but in this case, we're looking at 2 30,000 gallon tanks. That would be 60,000 gallons. So what we did is, we met with the deputy fire chief, the fire chief, and the building commissioner, Walter. And essentially what it comes down to is we presented this option to add these isolation valves, and they, as the authority having jurisdiction over the project, thought that for the life safety of not just the occupants, but the fire personnel, as well as for property preservation, they are requiring that these valves be installed. And the reason for that is, like I mentioned briefly, if there's an issue with one of these tanks, with one of the tanks, the building will have to be shut down because the building will be unprotected at that point. In addition to that, the fire department for the town of Dover is not set up to provide a fire watch. They just don't have that capability. So there will be no other option other than shutting down the entire building. During that time that the building will be shut down, because of the lack of proper fire water mains on the town of Dover, essentially the building will be unprotected. And if there is a fire event during that time, it could be a risk to the fire personnel that would essentially be fighting a fire at that time. For that reason, they are requiring that the isolation valves be installed. The cost for the valves is about $24,000. And what that would do is, with the isolation valves, if something were to happen to one of the tanks, they could isolate the other tank, saving the water, and the building could remain open. the fire department would allow the building to remain open with just one tank, because one tank can provide coverage necessary to protect the building. Yep, and so I'm just trying to look through the notes here, see what else we have here. I mean, the tanks that we have, they are fiberglass tanks, so they are more durable than your concrete tanks. However, one of the examples that David Taveri brought up during one of the meetings is, the tanks at gas stations are also fiberglass, and sometimes they also do leak. And so it's just something to keep in mind, and one of the reasons why they're requiring these tanks. Yeah, so that's a summary, and again, the total cost for that is $23,966.24. The cost is substantiated by the backup from the different subcontractors. These isolation valves would have electronic supervision, so that the fire department could essentially be able to supervise the status of the isolation valves remotely, just in case anybody tampers with them. Obviously, that will be a life safety issue, and so that is included in this cost. And there is no delay that the contractor is requesting to add these valves. The backup has been reviewed not just by myself, also the design team and the engineers. We went back and forth a few times on the pricing, and we feel that the cost is reasonable, is fair and reasonable, and we recommend that it be approved. The next potential change order, it's PCO number 8, that is for steel modifications for a total amount of $10,027.27. Essentially, once the the foundations were excavated at the existing 1910 building that is going to remain, we found out that the foundations were actually deeper than we thought they were going to be. That is, that's what we consider a hidden condition, something that we couldn't have known about until we start doing construction. So it's another reason why we have a contingency. Well, when we found out that the footings were deeper than anticipated, essentially that moved the steel design for the new construction further away from the building. And what that did is it meant that we needed to have a little bit more robust structural system with a bigger cantilever that requires some more custom bent angle, additional field welding that was require additional fabrication time. And like with the other PCO, the costs were, we went back and forth on it a few times, was reviewed by the structural engineer, by the architect, myself. We also feel that it's well supported, fair and reasonable, and we recommend that it be approved. Next, we have PCO number 10 for elevator panel electrical changes. That one is for an amount of $1,236.36. That PCO is once we received the submittal for the elevator that we're gonna go with. It is a Delta Beckwith. Through what we call the coordination process, that's another reason why we have a contingency. We realized that we needed some additional electrical wiring in order to be able to comply, to be compatible with the phasing requirements of that elevator that it's being submitted and it's going to be installed. And that's what the cost is for. And with the other PCOs, we reviewed the pricing with the electrical engineer, in this case, the architect, myself, and we also recommend that this PCO be approved. The last,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
okay. The last one is PCO number 13. That's for the enclosed office construction. This was a request by the Board of Selectmen to essentially add a private enclosed office for potentially a director in the future. Through a series of studies, feasibility studies of different locations, it was decided that the location would be by the main office area, by the entrance near the parking area. And the construction, the total for that potential change order is $29,368, $368.08. And that involves a number of different trades. All of the backup is included in that memo. It includes, I can go through some of them. It includes electrical, includes mechanical changes, includes doors and frames, ceilings, glass and glazing, painting, drywall, framing. So there's a number of subcontractors that are involved in this change order. All of the backup has been reviewed. We went back and forth on it a few times, and we believe that it's well substantiated, it's fair, reasonable, and we also recommend that it be approved.
Okay. Al, thank you. Dick, would you like to add anything on behalf of the committee before we open it up for discussion?
Sure. Thank you, John. Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think Al's kind of taken us through all the description of what they are. I would like to just say Al has been very diligent about pushing back on the contractor about costs, and does a very good job of doing that and looking out after our interests. And he's been very diligent with that. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Is there anything that you would like to add to my preamble of Al and the overview or the summary of his role in the relationship that you've had and the building committee has had with Colliers so far?
Sure. From our standpoint, it's wonderful. It's great to have a professional on board, they can really devote the time, and have the expertise to really understand and look out after all our interests. Because the building, because this project, it is a complex project. There's a ton of moving parts with this. And it's great to have somebody full-time, on top of all of this.
Great. Thank you. And Dick, it's at this moment, just want to remind everybody that you, prior to you, Ford Spalding, who chaired the committee, continue to put in hours and hours of time and energy and effort on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and on behalf of the town of Dover in this project. So on behalf of the board, I want to thank Ford prior to you and all the members of the committee. I know you get a lot of pushback from me as the Board of Selectmen's, and I'm sure you got a lot from Bob Springett prior to me. And we just do it in the interest of transparency. None of us get paid for this. We're doing it as a service to the town. I just want to remind everybody, Dick, the hours that you put in, the hours that the committee puts in, and none of us get paid for this. And I thank you for it and all the committee members for it. So with that, I just want to open it up to Robin and to Dave Haviland to any questions that we might have, and then open it up to everybody else on the call. So Robin, for Al, with regards to these 4 change orders, any questions?
No, Al, I think you did a great job summarizing it, and the memo you included was great. And just as a reminder to everybody watching, there was approximately 2.4 million that was in the contingency. And the contingency was set up for many of these kinds of items, especially like the fire suppression and the elevator and the steel. And today we've spent, it seems like around 245,000. So there's still close to 2.2 million left in that contingency. And, I think it's thanks to you, Al, and the committee for really watching over the project and making sure that, we stay on track. So I don't really have any issues with any of these pending change orders.
Thank you, Robin. Dave?
I'm not sure I have a problem, but I do have a question. First, I'd like to thank you for all the information in the packet because it really allowed us to
It's
study
super
this
helpful.
Yes, it's extremely helpful. The only question I have is actually on the smallest item, so I'm embarrassed to ask it. But on the elevator panel, the electrical changes, should the contractor, should they have known the type of elevator going in and what the requirements were going to be?
Sure. Thank you for your question. So the way that the architect sets up the specifications, the requirements for the different products on the building, they set what's called a basis of design. So they give you the performance criteria that the products need to meet. In this case, for example, the elevator. So tell you, the weight, just different requirements for the elevator, and then they give you a number of approved manufacturers that, essentially the architect saying, these are approved. Now, the contractor has the option to submit a different product, but if it's not in the specifications, in the bid documents, it will be a substitution and it will have to be approved by the project team. In this case, the elevator was a product that was not in the basis of design, but it was approved. And it just requires some additional coordination. Coordination is something that it's typical during the process of construction, and it's not uncommon that through the process of coordination, we find that we need additional things. So we had a couple other minor changes in the project as a result of coordination. We actually meet every week with the architects and the contractors and the subcontractors to do a coordination meeting where we try to identify if there's any, for example, any clashes between the different trades: mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection. And so this is what I would consider coordination. And again, it's one of the reasons why, we have a contingency.
All right, thank you. This is the type of change order that always kind of rubs me the wrong way. The other ones are very much necessary and required, but it's not enough money to make an issue of, so I will just yield and say thank you.
Well said, David. Thank you. Any other discussion on the matter? Any other items? Dick, is there anything else you would like to add before we move to the motion?
No, there isn't, John. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Dave, and thanks for the support and everything that the committee has done. I just remind everybody that I met with Dick and his committee last Monday to review all these. We had a lively conversation. The conversations are always informative. They're always filled with a healthy dialogue. We debate, we discuss, we have open, frank conversations because we are using taxpayer money and we take the matter seriously. So again, Dick, thank you. And thank you, obviously, as I said earlier, thanks to Ford and all the members of the committee. So at this moment, without any just further discussion, I'm going to move to approve the following change orders to the community center project: fire protection tank valve, the steel modifications, the elevator panel electrical changes, and the enclosed office construction process. I don't have on the motion the total amount. And Robin, or if Mike, if you have the total amount of.
The total amount is $65,597.95.
To be included in the motion, and ask for a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye, John Jeffries.
Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Dave Haviland.
So moved. Thank you all very much. Al, thank you. Al, you promised that the building is going to be under budget and on time, right?
We're currently on track. We had a little bit of a delay in the beginning with the asbestos. There was a lot more asbestos than we thought that were hidden. The building was occupied. But yeah, it looks like the contractor still has a path to completing the project, even through all the different bumps in the road. They still have a path to completing the project on time, given the additional, asbestos delays that we had.
What's on time? October?
Yes, beginning of October. Yes,
Okay.
for substantial completion. Yes.
And when do you think how long after that would we be permitted to occupy?
Yeah, so substantial completion, it's defined as when you technically have a certificate of occupancy. So technically
okay.
that would be when you could start to occupy the building. There's still gonna be some things that we call the punch list, some small items left that's not pertinent to life safety, but beginning of October, yes.
Very exciting.
Thank you very much. Well done. We're going to move on to our next item. And our presenter this evening for our next item is Chief Joseph Vinci. Chief, how are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. How's everybody tonight?
Doing well.
Good, excellent.
So,
next,
Chief,
I'm
are
sorry.
you or you are is it you or Michael?
Tag team.
Perfect.
We're sick
Well,
of Michael at this point.
Yeah. Well,
We
we're
want
so
somebody else to talk.
we're so looking forward to you.
Put somebody else in the hot seat, Mike.
Okay, fair enough. Go ahead,
Sure.
Chief.
Okay, so this was presented, this came across my desk from my former boss in Westwood, Chief Silva, and he was asked if we would possibly be interested in regionalizing our dispatch. And he also looped in Medfield Police Department and Chief Garrett. And the first step in doing that, the very first step is a feasibility study. So that's through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They'll do a study on the communities involved. Right now, the possibility is that Westwood could be the host, meaning that they would house the dispatchers and have their own REC, which is a regional emergency communication center. That's one possibility. And then in addition to that, if that doesn't work out, there's a possibility within this study that they could say you're better off joining an existing regional emergency communication center to like Holbrook. Sherburne Police Department is a member of the Holbrook REC. So again, this is just a feasibility study that I think is the first step to getting this done. There's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of legwork that's going to need to be done, but I think this is a good launching point to get this going. And then the best part is there's no obligation. So we're not obligated as a community to say, yes, we don't have to do it. If we don't like what the study shows, then we can explore other options. So there's no obligation. The study itself is free. And they look at the communities. They get the number of calls for service from each of the communities. They look at the total land area and the miles of roads and all that, and they see how we can do it. Another great part of this, if we do decide to go this route in the long run, is the Commonwealth gives a tremendous amount of money for radio infrastructure overhaul, which is something the police department is in need of. Our radio system is a bit behind the eight ball, so to speak. So we are working to better that now through other means. But if this is an option and a viable option, then that would be a tremendous savings to the town in terms of radio infrastructure costs, which would have to be a capital budget item, but the state would end up taking most of that, if not all of it, on through this process.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Robin, do you have questions?
Well, I know from interviewing Mike, where he's been involved in the regionalization of dispatch, right, Mike? And it was really successful project. And it makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's worth looking into and, making sure it works for all of our towns. So I look forward to the outcome of the feasibility study.
David?
Chief and I actually had a meet and greet yesterday, and we quickly spoke about this. And anytime you get to have a study that could possibly update or improve your equipment, possibly save costs, and possibly improve services, this is a no-brainer. So
Right.
I'd say we move ahead.
I agree. Chief, how does this impact Brett Roween and our current dispatchers? Would they take part in the study? Do you move them around? How does that, like the physical part, how does that work?
So the physical part would be essentially we'd get more bodies for police work. So we would, for lack of a better term, unburden ourselves of that desk potentially.
Nice.
So we could have more officers on the road. We could have our school resource officer be Monday through Friday when where she's most effective during the school week. But that's my thought, is that we can reincorporate those people to handling patrol calls, doing more follow-up, more community events. And then there's a discussion that we can have later as to if there's personnel in the station 24 hours, You know, there's different ways around that. Different departments do different things. You know, we could have a station officer if that's something the town wanted. You know, so that's something we can discuss down the road, but it would really free up the personnel in the police department to focus on their essential duty, which is policing. And in all honesty, it would also give us a buffer as it relates to time off. Right now, we're almost at a person for person fill. If
Yikes.
someone takes a vacation night, we're backfilling that with overtime. So this
Yeah.
would build a buffer into those shifts where we have more personnel and people could take time off without, you know, costing overtime. And I also had the benefit of speaking with Chief Galvin from Sherburne PD, and he's done this twice. So I think he's got one on Mike there. He did it in Berlin, and then he did it when he was the new chief in Sherburne. So he's very well versed. He's going to be a great asset for me to ask questions.
Uh-huh.
So it's good to have a neighbor that's been through it. I had coffee with Chief Garrett this morning from Medfield, and she's 100% in on this as well. So we'll just have to see where this study lands, and hopefully it's something that we, you know, we all like the sounds of, and we can take the necessary steps to maybe making it happen.
Right, given the size of all three towns, it just makes sense where you can to save costs and provide better service to regionalize.
Yep.
You know, it's so hard to hire police officers.
Right, right. And the other thing is, you know, through the Commonwealth, with part of this is the first 3 years cost the town nothing. The fourth year, it's a 50% cost. And then the fifth year, we pay 75%. And then the sixth year on, we pay dues towards that regional emergency communication center. So it's a staggered, you know, cost
Right.
to the town. But the flip side of that is we don't have to hire those personnel. We don't have to pay them, pay their benefits, pay their OPEB, and all those other things. And quite honestly, our dispatchers and our officers that work the desk do a great job, but their primary job is a police officer. And I think it's a much better system when you have professional dispatchers. That's all they do is dispatch police, fire, and emergency personnel. You know, that's, you know, not to dive too deep into it tonight, because I know it's just a feasibility study, but that's kind of where I'm coming from and my viewpoints on this.
No, that's a great point, Chief, because a lot of people don't realize as we go through these things, we don't do them regularly. They come across us periodically. People hear us, see us appointing officers, that our Nicole and Brett and our overnight people are officers. They're officers, and many people think of this dispatch person as being a civilian who just works behind the desk, and it's not the case. We have actual officers who are being trained, and who are, as you just described, trained to do a specific job. So it's
Right.
It's hard to replace. We're lucky we have such good people who are willing to do these jobs. So I am going to move to approve the participation in a feasibility study regarding regionalization dispatch operations between Dover, Westwood, Medfield, undertaken by the Mass State 911. Ask for a second.
Second.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Have a great
you.
night.
Chief.
Take care. Bye-bye.
The next item on our agenda this evening is going to be a presentation from Chris Costello. Chris?
It said
Communication
Mr.
discussion.
Costello in the backup. Sounds very important.
I'm reading Mona's agenda. So, Mr. Costello, how are you this evening?
All right, we're doing good. Thank you for the introduction. So before you tonight are two proposals to support the town's communication and community engagement efforts. So first, I'd like to present on the proposal from the Collins Center. And I know I've mentioned this in the past, but over the past few months, I've been working to understand our current, communication and engagement practices, what tools we have. And I've also made efforts to improve what we have where necessary and try to do new things and reach the community in new ways. But, you know, in order to really strengthen and focus our approach to communications and engagement, a communications plan is really what is required. And the Collins Center will do just that for us. They'll develop a communications plan, and it'll further analyze our current practices, provide recommendations for improvement, and also the most important part is develop the goals and the strategies for focusing on digital communication, really. You know, the plan will also identify areas of need, provide tips and guides for improving those areas of needs. And also another important aspect is it's also, you know, would incorporate staff interviews as data points to incorporate into the plan, and also public feedback in the form of a community survey. I think this is an interesting part of it, as we'll actually solicit the opinion of the town and make sure that we're communicating and engaging in a way that's effective for them and what they expect. You know, the end result of this will be an actionable plan that can be implemented and will be implemented. And over the course of the next year, my goal would be to prepare to hit the ground running when the final plan is done, and, you know, put all those goals and objectives into action. So that's the quick summary of the Collins Center. I don't know if you want to open up for discussion on that before I talk about Guilfoyle, but I can continue on to Guilfoyle as well if you'd like.
How about if you do Guilfoyle and then we come back to a sort of a debate, you know, and a discussion between
Sure.
the pros and cons of each. And I think that way, Chris, will be a little bit more transparent rather than trying to segment them. We'll keep it together, and we can then bring questions to you.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, kind of alluded to with the Collins Center, you know, we're doing the best we can with communications. I think, you know, we're still growing and our strategies are improving, but, you know, we don't really have the feedback from the public. We don't have the goals shaped up that align everybody. And that's kind of where Guilfoyle comes in the interim, is that they can help us work through some of those communication projects that require a little bit more strategy and thinking, and help us sort through that. They can also, you know, if we don't have a project that requires much deliberation in terms of strategy, you know, they can help us produce deliverables every month. And that could be in the form of helping us get our social media content out the door, you know, special kind of projects, and also press releases, which, you know, I envision being a part of the communication strategy going forward, you know, as a way to break down complex ideas for the public and also try to get some additional engagement through the local media. So that's where I feel, you know, Guilfoyle will definitely help us fill those gaps over the next year, while we, you know, craft our plan for the long term.
Thank you. So,
And Chris, oh, go ahead, John.
no, go ahead, Rob.
I was just curious, have you worked with the Collins Center before?
I
Yeah,
personally have not. You know, part of the research I've done to get to this point, to identify them as a partner for this project, is I've looked at their body of work from other municipalities. In particular, there's two communication plans out there that can be reviewed from Burlington and Shrewsbury that give you an exact representation of what our final product will be. And I think it's a great example to show you, you know, if you look at the differences between those two projects, that they're really tailor-made for the community that they do the work in. And I think that's descriptive of, you know, the approach that they take. So you can see their qualifications, you know, through communications, and amongst communications, they do work for a multitude of other municipal services where you can, you know, observe their deliverables and see, you know, the qualified professionals that they have on staff to help us out. So no, I haven't, but I would be excited to work with them.
right. You know, I did have the opportunity to look through their plans, though, both of those documents, and they are extremely comprehensive. And you could tell from the actual document that there was a lot of work behind the scenes that got done to pull that together. So really what you have before us are two different proposals. One is for the sort of long-term strategy for communications, and the second one is really just more of a short-term additional resource to help us bridge the gap, right?
Correct. And, you know, I think in terms of Guilfoyle, with filling the gap, I mean, we've certainly identified opportunities for communication engagement even in the past 5 months that were kind of new territory for us. And to have them help us shape those ideas and make them as good as they can be on the first try is really going to give us a good leg up for when we have a plan in place. So it'll really bolster our short-term strategy, make sure we're being effective before we have this plan.
Okay, all right.
I know Robin doesn't want to hear me talk, but
No, I didn't say that. Now I'm giving.
okay.
I
don't
tried
think-
to give you an entree. I'm resting your voice for you.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, just especially for Dave's benefit, we have worked with Guilfoyle, the board prior to Chris and my arrival, signed a contract last year with Guilfoyle for more expanded services. So we've had a year to work with them. They are a great partner. The reality is, though, we're just not utilizing them to the value of that original contract. That's no fault of the Guilfoyle, the contractor. It just wasn't a realistic use. So this is a pared down version of a contract at lesser content, but at a lesser cost. And then also just, Robin, to your point on Collins Center, I have worked with them before, and I think there's two real benefits to them. One is they exclusively work with municipalities and state government, which we are a unique animal, and our communication needs are very different than a business or the corporate world, so that's very helpful. And then two, because they are a state entity, it helps with procurement. We don't have to go through a bid process or a proposal process. We're able to contract directly with them, which is nice, saves time, money, and effort on our part as well.
No, I think we have used the Collins Center for various projects, and I've always thought the quality of the work we've gotten has been excellent, and they've been really good to work with.
I agree, Robin. Dave, comments, questions?
I do agree with Robin that the two sample plans, and Chris for that matter, they did not appear to be fluff. They appeared to be substantive and tailored. And so I was like, okay, because I always look at these things with a skeptical eye, but it actually won me over. Chris, just for those who might be listening to this later and who don't have the packet in front of us, this was approved at the 2023 town meeting. So that's where the source of funding is. And let's see, Collins is 55,000, and I'm blanking. What is the other one? But
$7.99 a month.
Right, but that's going to come out of operating, not out of the warrant.
Right.
So they're kind of separate. But again, this is using 125,000 that was authorized at the 2023 annual town meeting.
Yep.
Right. So, Dave, any follow up to that, or do you?
No, thank you. I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay. So, Chris, what I was trying to really understand is, as we've mentioned, we've had an engagement with Guilfoyle, and what I would ask, and I've been asking this question: what exactly do they do? What exactly do they weigh in on? I agree with both Dave and Robin. Their content is great. We've hired them, right? We had them. We brought them on board, and I don't know, Michael, if you could help articulate this, but was the engagement too broad? Were the items that we need too granular? It just seemed to me as an observer of, they have great content, they have very really well respected, award-winning people, but it seemed like for us, we weren't getting, in my case, and I only should say this for me, what I thought we would be getting. Michael, would you say that's accurate? That statement is accurate, or and if so, how do we make it different this time?
So from my perspective, I don't know if I would say that statement's accurate in that Guilfoyle has produced anything we've asked of them.
Okay.
Again, when I came on board, they had been here, but again, a lot of transition. Our valiant interim town administrator was just keeping things afloat, so there wasn't a lot of engagement from our end to Guilfoyle. However, when I came on board, we did start to utilize them. In addition, because we weren't using content pieces, which is kind of how they say we'll do X number of press releases or social media posts, we were able to utilize them for other things. So as you know, Mr. Springett spent a lot of time working on the Board of Selectmen roles, looking at revamping the Blue Book. And so they actually came in and spent time with those working groups to review the documents and make some really nice suggestions that we're going to start to look to incorporate. They worked, I believe, with Robin on the presentation for last year. So, their bread and butter is press releases and 24/7 crisis support. Because we weren't utilizing it that way, they were creative with us to find kind of other uses of their services. But as I said, I think the contract that you signed last year, through no one's fault, was just too broad in terms of the amount of money and content. And frankly, now that we have Chris on board, who has a communication background, has been doing great work, really we need them to supplement what he's doing, not replace what he's doing.
One of the things, that is very well said, Michael, for what I was trying to get to. You got there, you put a point on it, from my words, the broad application of what we were trying to do to the granularity of what we want to get done. I'll give you one example for me, and maybe either Michael or Chris, you can weigh in on this. The website. I want more pictures. I want the website to have your picture, Mike and Chris and the team. I want people to identify with people. I want the citizens to be able to see this. These are who are the people inside the building are. You don't get that, right? So that's a basic thing that in the industries that I work in, we manage, that we support, and we run, that's critical, right? That our clients and our customers know who we are. So that's something I really want them to do. And so when these individual projects come up, like the community center, who's Dick Malcolm, right? The people we just had on. Who is Al? Who is our project manager? Give them the picture. Show them this is your neighbor that is doing hundreds of hours of work on this project for your benefit. So I really want that to be a priority, because it's missing, right? And it speaks volumes when you can do things like that. So, and Chris, I'm gonna send this back to you. Who's gonna be better for something like that? Is it gonna be better to have the Collins Center, or is it gonna be better to have the PR firm in Guilfoyle?
Yeah, in terms of actual deliverables, Guilfoyle will provide the direct support for that. If we wanted to, for example, say, we got some big things coming up, like when the community center is open and we want to announce that to the community, we can put together a press release that can be much more comprehensive than just putting something on Facebook that says, hey, we're open. We can break down the idea of, how much work went into it, who the people that were involved. We can make sure we pay respect and thank them for all their efforts, and really try to shape the idea of what the community center will be and set the tone. So Guilfoyle is, really good for working through those types of big ideas and making sure we can break down, those bigger communication pieces and get the right message out to people. And that's how I would envision working with them. Another example would be town meeting coming up. we want to be able to share with the local media the logistics of how to get there and what's at stake and who the players are. They're also good at breaking down some of those things. So the press releases I see, as I alluded to before, being a bigger part of the strategy, because they're a great tool to, one, expand the reach, and also share more complex and elaborate ideas efficiently.
What about as simple as the Board of Selectmen wants the members of the Carroll building, the community center projects, we want their photos up on the website, and we want it next week. Who'd be better at that?
So I would actually say, I'd probably just look directly to me and say I can make that happen. That's some of the work that I do on the day-to-day. If it doesn't require, a ton of extra work or additional thinking, so a simple project like that, that's something we can take care of.
I want your picture. I want Chris and Mona and Mike. I want these are the people who work day to day in the office of the Board of Selectmen up on the website. If you go to many of the other towns that are powered by our same website, their websites are so much better and easier to navigate. And we have the same company. We have the same company that does it.
Right,
So
these are two different projects.
Right. I'm just trying to get my arms around that,
Yep.
Robin. Like, how do we differentiate one from the other?
So I think it's important to know, concurrent to these communication pieces,
Right.
the other half of that 2023 town meeting vote that Dave referenced is the website redesign. And that is something that Chris is undergoing right as we speak. So, part of them, they kind of all come together. There's kind of three different pieces: day-to-day communication, the long-term study and plan, and our website redesign, which all kind of work together. And John, you're right. And the reality is our website, it's great. It has what it needs, but it's not as navigable as some of their other products. And that is just a function of when we picked the product, somebody selected this design. They've since come up with better designs, things that are more, one click. No one ever here initiated putting pictures on. I think that's a great idea. And that's something we could do absolutely as we go through the process. I think that's a great idea.
You didn't see the website before this one.
I have heard about it, yes.
Also,
we made improvements, but
point.
as soon as you improve something, you need something better.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece, just so the board and the public know, that Chris is working on not only a redesign, but Chris is now training, in the process of starting to train each department on how to properly maintain their individual web pages. So we don't have a person who's just a webmaster full time. And so that responsibility lies with the departments. And again, with the turnover or just the kind of lack of initiative, some departments don't even know how to log into the website. And so those are things we're all working through now, so that when you go to a web page, it's up to date, it has pertinent information. And we're going to try to use the website data, which Chris pulls reports, to see what are people clicking on the most, what are people searching for the most, and putting those items on the homepage so that people don't have to dig through and go through 10 clicks just to find, a pretty simple item.
It seems to me that the missing link to the success of all of this has been having Chris. And once we have someone who knows what the heck they're doing, they can then take these, not disparate, but different parts of this project, bring them all together, and then bring them home. So, I mean, I'm all for both of these because of that, but it is apparent, John, we were playing more than one man down. So we're back to even strength, and here we go.
Yeah, Dave, that's a very good point. And I guess you're absolutely right. We've been playing with one, sometimes two men man down or in the penalty box or whatever metaphor you'd like to use, but definitely not at full strength, right? That's basically where we are. We're back to full strength. So Michael, is this an either or? Is it both motions? And from a management standpoint, your recommendation is going to go a long way, Michael. Certainly with me, I'll let Robin and David speak for themselves, but you've both and have collectively answered my questions. So, Michael, I'm going to just turn it back to you and say, what's your recommendation? What do you like to see?
Sure. No, thanks, John. So what Chris and I are both recommending is that you move to approve both proposals. And just again, to reiterate for the public's benefit, they are separate in that Guilfoyle is a communications day-to-day, helping us with actual
Supplements.
deliverables. And versus the Collins is a separate specific project for a communications plan that was specifically approved at town meeting last year.
Thank you. I thank you. And that's exactly what I wanted you to do, Mike. I just wanted you to clarify that it's not an either or. We're not debating. We're not rationalizing the cost. We're not going back to the town to approve additional expenses. So, Robin, anything you'd like to add?
I am looking forward to the Collins Center answering the question we've never been able to answer. What people want and how they want to get their communications. If they can do it, it will be worth every penny. And as far as pictures go, Chris, if you could make us look good, then you can put back in.
Photoshop may be required.
Let's not ask for the impossible. Let's settle for
We're okay with a little bit of Photoshop.
I'm okay with Photoshop away. Dave, anything to add before we go to the motion?
No, thank you.
Hearing no other debate, discussion, and thank you all for this discussion and debate. And Chris, thank you very much for the presentation. Well done, well thought through, well articulated. I move to approve the communication services proposal between the town of Dover and John Guilfoyle, Public Relations, dated March 21st, 2024. I move to approve professional services agreement between the town of Dover and the University of Massachusetts Collins Center for Public Management, dated March 21st, 2024, and ask for a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor, I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
Thank you very much.
That was
Mike?
a weird moment. In my head, I was saying, I, Bob Springett, going first, and then you, and then me. So it was just a bizarre moment there.
Robin, if you had any idea how many times something like that has happened to me in exactly what you said, whether it's in the moment, that in a conversation where I just turn or I'm thinking about something and think Bob, and just like to ask for, I stop during the day sometimes to pick up the phone to call him. And
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how many times I think about it, and just, it's just amazing. It's surreal at times, but I guess anybody who's been through it sort of knows what we're going through. So, on to the next item, and that is the approval of the 2024 annual town meeting warrant. And Michael, would you like to, I know we all got the most recent, and I'm assuming the packet has, the most recent packet is on the website. So Mike, you want to take it from here?
Absolutely. So what was sent to you earlier was what we're considering, quote unquote, the final version of the warrant. I appreciate our town moderator, Jim Rapetti, who was in with me last week to finalize the order of things prior to open hearing. So what you'll find in the packet is Articles 1 through 13 are really kind of the standard annual reoccurring articles, actually, as well as the last two, 26 and 27. So this thing's in there every year. A few of those items we'll work with the town moderator to consider being part of a possible consent agenda to make hopefully town meeting a little more efficient. The middle of the warrant, I guess, is a little bit more of the meat, outside of the budget, obviously, in that they are unique to this year. So there are a couple of new revolving funds. There's rescinding some previous borrowing authorization, which is just a housekeeping item, but it's not necessarily on there every year. There's appropriations for one-time projects, specifically the development and housing plan that the Housing Task Force has put forward. There's two items from the planning board, which they presented in open hearing: the construction hours bylaw, as well as the small and medium solar bylaw. And then there's some general articles on stormwater. There's a request from the Board of Assessors to enter into longer than 3-year contracts. So under state law, you're only allowed to do 3 years unless you have town meeting approval. And they're looking to do that so that their contract can follow the same cycle as their reassessment or evaluation process. There's an article on there about, again, presented at open hearing, was a transfer of some town-owned land to the Conservation Commission. And one of the reasons the warrant came in what I consider a little hot today to you was because we're still working through that as a result of some questions that came up at the Conservation Commission meeting as well as open hearing. And we believe we're in a position now where the warrant allows us to move forward and we can deal with the specific concerns as part of the motion. So what you see before you gives us some flexibility for that. There's the aggregation program, which we'll have, I think, our next selectmen meeting, we'll have someone in to speak more about that. And then we have the 2 citizens petitions, again, which both presented an open hearing for the installation of a sidewalk on Cross Street, and as well as a dog leash bylaw. So that's the warrant before you. I will note, if you recommending you move to approve it, there is one change. So I asked you to approve it as amended. And thanks to Mona, she picked up on there was an incorrect reference under the aggregation plan, where all the references should read Mass General Law, Chapter 164. One of them referenced Chapter 163, which Mona looked up and found out it's about trolleys. And I don't want anyone to think we're bringing trolleys to town. We're not trying to sneak that by anybody. So all the references should read 164, and if you could vote to approve as amended with that change, we'll make that before we finalize the document.
So Mona's new profession is no longer.
Right.
No trolley driver.
No trolley driver. I was thinking those little trolleys riding around town.
Ding, ding. All right.
And again, just for the board's, so the board knows, for the public's benefit, town council reviews this, made some suggested changes, and what's before you is her approved version of the warrant.
Sounds
and
great.
It's longer than normal, I think, because of the streets.
Yeah, so there's a couple extra charts in this year with the new revolving funds, and then in the conservation land, which often, as you'll see, some of the bylaws, because they're so long, or some of the articles, are so long, they're on file. In the case of the land, town council recommended we actually include that in the warrant itself. So it does make it a little bit longer.
That sounds great. Does Jim Repetti want to add anything? I know it was on earlier.
No, I have nothing to add, and maybe just check with Kate as well, my new assistant town moderator. Kate, do you have anything you want to add?
I thought Kate just wanted to listen to the meeting.
No.
I didn't realize it was work.
I'm sorry. I'm on a hotel Wi-Fi, so it's not great. No, I don't have anything to add. It looks good.
Kate, just for the record, thank you very much for stepping into Dave's shoes. This is going to be such a new and incredible experience. You're going to love it. Right,
well,
right, Dave?
I brought the bell home. I brought the bell home the other
we
night.
transferred the bell in the timer at the open warrant meeting. So
I think Ted Canny would tell you he's not really enjoying the bell, but
Oh, man.
Well,
Oh,
Cam
thank you.
was excellent with the timer at the open
He
hearing.
was.
Right,
So I
Well-
aspire to be that proficient.
right.
That- Thank you for this discussion and the clarifications. I move to approve the May 6th, 2024 annual town meeting warrant and ask for a second.
Second,
All in favor, aye, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
Thank you all very much. Jim, Kate, we're on countdown. We're looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Super,
And
thanks.
then after the meeting tonight, we'll probably have a whole lot more to talk about. So thank you very, very much. So we're going to move to the next item. And this item is a bit of an interesting item, sort of something new for the board to consider. And I'm going to read the summary briefly, so we're all just familiar with the subject at hand. Chapter 4, Section 4-1 of the Dover Code states that the appointed members of a town committee shall be registered voters in Dover. However, it is the prerogative of the selectmen to waive this requirement in specific cases. Valerie Lynn, chairperson of the Tree Preservation Committee, is requesting approval of the selectmen to appoint an unregistered resident to the Dover Tree Preservation Committee. So, Chris, or I'm sorry, Michael, do you want to, any discussion regarding Janine, or I can't see if Valerie is on, Chris.
She is.
Yes.
So,
Wave Valerie.
hello, Valerie.
I'm here.
How are
Present.
you?
And Jean Lukenda is also on the call.
Nice. Valerie, would you like to introduce Jean?
Sure, I would love to. Nice to see all of you this evening. I am here on behalf of the Tree Preservation Committee to request a citizenship waiver for the citizenship requirement for Jean Lukenda this evening. She has been a Dover resident for over 25 years. She has 2 children who have gone through the Dover and the Dover-Sherburne school system. Despite her longtime residence in Dover, she remains a citizen of Canada. However, I believe that she would be a tremendous addition to our Tree Preservation Committee. Her background is in urban and regional planning and landscape architecture. She has been in private practice in Boston for almost 3 decades, and her focus is on the stewardship of public open space, and expertise is in climate resiliency and community engagement at all scales. And she recently was elevated as a fellow in the American Society of Landscape Architects and is currently one of 2 candidates running for the president position of the national office of the American Society of Landscape Architects. So I think she would be a fantastic addition. I or Jean would be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Well, Jean, welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Thank you very, very much for your willingness to serve. Val, I don't have any questions. Robin, do you?
No, thank you, Jean. And, we have done this before, and I think it's great to give residents of Dover, especially those that have lived here for so many years, are not part of the fabric of our community, an opportunity to participate. So thank you, Jean. Really appreciate it. And I think your background is a perfect fit.
Agreed. David?
Well, let's see if I got it right. If the American Board of Architects is willing to take on Jean, I
Right.
we certainly can. I thank you for your willingness to do it, and I have no questions.
Jean, anything you'd like to add?
No, it's just nice to be on a different side of this table. Usually I'm the consultant making a presentation to all of you. And I haven't had much opportunity to volunteer for the town. So it's my honor and long overdue. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Well, that's Really nice. Very, very well said. Thank you very much. So without any further discussion, I move to appoint Jean Lukenda, and if I've mispronounced that in any way, Jean, I apologize, to the Tree Preservation Committee for a 2-year term expiring in June 30th, 2026. Ask for a second.
Second,
All in favor? I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
Jean, thank you very, very much. Welcome. And thanks, Valerie, thank you for finding such a great candidate.
Thank you. Thank you
And
all.
she makes presentations, Valerie.
I know.
I
Well,
said
that's
too
duly
much.
noted.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So for the selectmen, we're going to go through to our next item on the agenda this evening. Updates, Board of Selectmen updates. And do you want to go through the schedule, Michael, first, or the updates first?
Well, we could just touch on the schedule. So just for the board's benefit, I'll probably send an email to you, maybe even tomorrow, to poll you. But I did talk to our town moderator, and we are looking to move your meeting scheduled for April 18th, which is also the moderator's meeting. Reason being, it's April vacation week. We have some people away, and very selfishly, myself included. So we're hoping to perhaps bump that to the following week. Jim was very gracious to agree to move it, and just suggested and asked that I work with our town clerk. So I work with Felicia and Mona on that date, and we'll get that out to see if everybody's available.
I'm definitely in favor of that, moving it to that.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that either.
Nor do I. There's plenty of notice, so.
Right.
Yeah. So I have updates for me were the hail, which Chris and I were a part of. I'm sorry, Michael and I were a part of yesterday. Michael, at the hail update, which we're going to be speaking about a little bit later, but I asked the question in the chat before, quite literally about 5 minutes before my plane took off. So I was on board trying to do 3 things at once, and making the notes into the chat. I don't know if the questions were answered. So Michael, if you would like to give a brief update over with regards to the hail conversations that we had yesterday, that would be a great help, I think, for me, and do as little or as much of that as you'd like for this particular segment of our presentation.
Sure. So I'll probably save the majority of it for our executive session.
Okay.
But just for the public's benefit, we are continuing to push the hail conversation forward regarding the conservation restriction. I think that it is public knowledge that we were pretty close to releasing a conservation restriction publicly to consider that. There have been some developments and an alternative proposal that's been presented, and we're working through that now. And I think I'll probably just save the rest for executive session.
Yeah, well said. That was just part of my update. The other part of my update from last week was the building committee, which we covered in our very first item. So my 2 segments have been covered in great detail this evening. Robin?
So first of all, I would like to thank the team in the Board of Selectmen's office for all the prep work that they did with respect to the open hearing. I thought it went really well. All the presentations were very well put together. Michael, I think there were no questions on the budget because the presentation was extremely comprehensive and easy to understand. Chris, I got back from Europe and I saw the brochure or the pamphlet in the mail, regarding town meeting, and that was just absolutely excellent. And the ability to scan and get you the information was great. So really kudos to you. I think feedback that we got from open hearing was good. Certainly it gave us some insight to the questions, especially those surrounding the citizens petitions, and there's a little bit of prep work to be done over there. And with respect to the Dover Housing Task Force requests, we still need to get a proposal, but this was one of the best open hearings in a while. So thank you to everybody. It was really good. So I just wanted to say that, and I know we've all been working really hard on that. So.
Well, thank you, Robin. Very well said. David?
Yes, so the Financial Review Subcommittee, I'm not sure that's quite the official title, but
I like it.
I'm not sure there is an official title, but in any event, as you know, with Kyle's departure, we now have Sarah Hunter as our interim treasurer collector, which is great because now we have 2 Robins and 2 Hunters.
No relation, though. No relation. I should go introduce myself.
She is a wonderful individual, full of energy, full of ideas, and
Maybe she is related.
And the bottom line is we are going to continue the work. I explained what we were trying to do and trying to build upon. And instead of getting resistance, I got more ideas out of her to improve and continue this. So
wow, excellent.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I also met with Nina and explained to her what we were doing, and the process that we're taking and how we're doing it is exactly what Nina would recommend. So a little bit of ground root efforts is going to be required, and also just a little bit of leeway has to be given that they're closing the books. Just finished that up, finishing up the budget. So everyone's been a little busy. So I'm hoping that maybe next week we can get going. The real hard part of all this is finding the source documents with the turnover and the filing system. Hopefully Felicia will be able to find all this. But it's not very easy just to say, oh, poof, let's go get the Hovey Trust, put it on a drive, and then read it to see what it says. So that portion of the library account, if you will, is managed according to the trust and what the library's needs are. And that's really what we want to do. I will say that
It's upstairs in the balcony, all you have to do is go spend a few months up there, and I'm sure you'll find everything. And while you're at it, maybe you could scan those documents in.
Yeah, people have gone up there and never come back. Dave, don't do that.
Is that where I'm going to find the guy who keeps banging on the radiator during meetings?
That was comical on Monday night.
Do not go up there. People have never been seen again.
Exactly. I've actually been up there with Felicia, but we haven't gone into documents. So the hardest part is going to be finding the documents. And I will give everyone a heads up that it has been a long time since we have gone out for any RFP on any of these money managers.
Yeah.
So I foresee that happening in the not too distant future. But again, slow, steady, methodical, and we'll keep working on this and get to where we need to be. But I was just delighted that Sarah seems all in. So that's my update.
I agree. Thank you, David. I went by to see Sarah and Jennifer just to say, after our last meeting, say thank you and welcome, and had a very similar interaction and meeting with Sarah. David, it was great. We talked about a couple of things. First and foremost, I said, can you take the plexiglass down? And she said, absolutely. I'm a people person. I don't know, it's been 4 years since we've been through this. I don't know why it's still up. And I want people to be able to come in and have an interaction with somebody in the office, not a barrier. I thought, wow, okay, great. That's a great first impression. And she said that in the filing cabinets, there's 3 drawers. 2 of them are broken. And I said, get rid of the filing cabinet. Take everything you want and physically get rid of the filing cabinet. So she's done that. She's literally getting rid of the old cabinets that are broken that don't open. Like, also a good start. So I agree with your reaction, David, and it's going to be, I think, a real a welcomed addition. So I think the office is going to see a lot of really positive things. So thank you for that. Anything else that we need to add? I think that's Michael. That's it for the selectmen. Do you want to segue into your update?
Sure, I'll do my update, and I just have one other item. So I'm going to ask Mona to put me first, because as all of you talked, you were checking off my items I wanted to talk about. So I won't rehash everything, but just yes, for the board's benefit and for the public, losing a department head like a treasurer collector is difficult, but I just was going to reiterate the same thing. Our consultant is just fabulous. We're just so lucky to have her. I wish she was looking for a permanent employment, but she's not. But I just wanted to reiterate, we're in really good hands. So I think that's great. I did want to thank Chris.
She hasn't met her cousin yet, so she might want it after.
I also wanted to just say we've got a lot of positive feedback on the mailer as well, Robin. So thank you for sharing that. Thanks to Chris. And really, it really has been just kind of all hands on deck to prepare for open hearing. Our office, obviously, as Robin said, but Felicia was a great help. Cam on the warrant committee, finalized the warrant, the budget, and now the big press is to work with the warrant committee to finalize the blue book, because we're up against some tight printing deadlines due to some vacation schedules. So we will get through that. And just, this board members, but the public, our office only runs because of Mona. And I just feel like I haven't been able to catch my breath, but yet everything around here is getting done. So I just wanted to say thank you to her. And she's very much on the block here. The last item I'll have is if the board would mind, if we could briefly go back. We missed a portion of the vote for Jean. You did move to appoint her, but I missed it as well. You also need to move to approve waiving, in this specific case, for an appointment to the Tree Preservation Committee, the Dover Code registered voter requirement. So if you wouldn't mind moving and seconding and voting that, just to make sure we have a complete vote, that would be great.
So moved.
Okay. So yeah, exactly. All in favor? I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
And I'll second it, Dave Haviland.
Thanks, Dave.
Perfect order.
I wasn't sure if I could move and second.
There you go.
Mona, I apologize. On my motion, it was just, I may be
You're on your phone and none of us bailed you out, John.
I know.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Mona.
You're welcome.
Chris, I'm sorry, Michael. So do you want to, can we go to the consent agenda, or are you?
Yep, you can do the consent agenda, and then you can make a motion to enter executive session after that.
Okay, let's do the consent agenda, and so I'm just going to read very quickly. Items on the consent agenda are the appointment of Robin Hunter as clerk of the Board of Selectmen, John Jeffries as designated signer of expenses and payroll items. I feel like that's what I do at home. Robin Hunter, and I get obviously no support on that. Robin Hunter, Dave Haviland.
The other day, John and I were like seconds. It was just so funny. The approval we did it at the same time, but one came in first.
Oh my God.
That was funny. You have to admit that.
Spooky. Yes. So Robin Hunter, Dave Haviland as absent alternate signer of expense and payroll of the warrant items. Approval of the proclamation of a National Public Works Week, May 19th through the 25th, 2024. Approval of one-day liquor licenses, March 29th, April 7th, and approval April 13th, 2023 Board of Selectmen open session meeting minutes, which were flawless, presented by Mona. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I will second that.
All in favor, I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
I, Dave Haviland.
Terrific. So at this time, we are going to move to a executive committee meeting, not to return to open hearing. I further, as chair, determined that the moving to executive session is a benefit for the town, and having these conversations in open hearing would be a detriment to our negotiations. I'm going to move for a second and ask for a roll call vote for adjournment, to adjourn open hearing, not to return to adjourn the open hearing, not to return.
Very quickly, John, should we read they're persnickety about this one, so should we read the motion again and get it perfect?
I was trying to do that, Dave, but I don't have, I was doing
That's
it
why
from memory.
I noticed you were actually very good, to the point where you almost pulled it off.
I don't have it in front of
Would you
me.
like me just to read the motion
apologize.
exactly, and then we can use that?
Literally
Yeah,
doing
that
it from
sounds
memory.
great, Dave. So Dave
Yeah,
will
yeah.
do it for you.
Thank you.
It's
I
his
move that the-
initiation.
Yeah, there we go. I move that
Thank
the
you.
board enter into an executive session, not to return to open session, to discuss strategy with respect to considering the purchase of real property, hail conservation restriction. Further, I declare that open meeting discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town.
Seconded.
Okay, so you just do a
All in
roll call
favor.
vote.
Wait, all in favor, roll call vote. David, where did you see that? Where is it?
It's right in the packet.
God, sorry. Mona, I apologize.
John, no worries.
Okay, I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
I, Dave Haviland.
You're away on your phone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's our job to back you up.
Right, you did
Thank
a
you.
tremendous job pulling off what you did, so.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.